Welcome to this section of the Boat Expo. We're going to talk about the true cost of boating. One of the things that I want you to start with, and it's where we start in the 7 steps to buy the best boat at the best price, is to understand the budget. Yes, you need to know what type of boat you're going to buy. Yes, you need to know, are you a new or used person, the brands that make the most sense. And we walk you through all that with our tool that we've created for you. But it's also important to know the true cost of boating. So what we've done is we're going to take you through step by step each of the sections that you need to be aware of and figure into your budget. So you have the boat. We'll start there because that's really the biggest chunk, and it can be upfront if you're going to pay cash. So you obviously have the purchase price, but a few things that are kind of forgotten about or maybe not considered up front. And this is what is really frustrating for people, especially first-time boat owners, is they get hit with these extra amounts that they don't realize are coming. If you buy from a dealer, sometimes they aren't real descriptive on what you're paying for, or they drop them on you at the last minute. If you're buying from a private individual, you may not know until you get a several $100 or even a several $1,000 bill in the mail that says, oh, by the way, you owe the state this much. So the first one is the purchase price of the boat. The next is the sales tax. Now you have sales tax on boat, motor, and trailer. So depending on your state, you're gonna, if you buy a boat, motor, trailer package for, let's say, $50,000, you're going to pay a portion to whoever the taxes for boats and motors go to. And then you may also pay a portion for the trailer to the DMV if that's how it works in your state. So one of the things you can do to save money is assign just a small amount to the trailer and put most of it on the boat. If the tax rates are a little bit cheaper for boats, like in South Carolina, the tax rate is capped at $300 for boats. In North Carolina, it's $1,500. In Tennessee, it's 7% of the price. So you can adjust the pricing, just make sure you're within reasonable limits. And that's a one-time amount. You pay the sales tax and you're done. Next, you have the state registration fee. This is an annual amount. Some states will do it and they'll give you a 3-year registration, which can save you a little bit of money. The registration, again, you could have a boat, motor, and trailer registration that you have to pay. Again, the boat and motor are going to go to the wildlife department, the DNR, whatever the fishing and wildlife, whatever your state's boating area is. And you can look that up. We're putting a resource together that you can get as well and download that. And then you're also going to have to the DMV, you're going to have to pay the registration for the trailer. Now, it's typically not huge amounts. For most states, it's around $100 or so, but it's something that you need to figure in. So when I'm working with the dealer specifically, I like to work at what's called the out the door price. So what's everything that's included? Any fees that you have. So the boat's going to be this much, the registration this much, the sales tax this much. And are you going to charge a document, registration, prep fee, delivery fee? And if you work in that out the door number, you know that there's going to be no hidden amounts. That's a helpful number to know and to talk about. And then also get a detailed breakdown so you know exactly what that entails. And then this is the one I think that catches most boaters off guard. And it's because not every state has this, is a state property tax. Now, I know in South Carolina, we have a property tax on the boat that's due every year, and it's several $100s a year that's going to come due. And if you don't pay it, they can repossess and you're going to get fines. And it's just something that you don't want to have happen. And you also don't want it to catch you off guard. So what you can do is you can go to your state property tax and just search, do we have a property tax amount? And again, we're putting a resource together that you can download so you can check yours real easy. but always go to your state because these are changing every time. In states like California, they're even by the county. So each county is going to have a different tax amount. And there's some places that have no property tax on boats. And it's typically going to be based on where you keep the boat. So for me, my backyard, if I was to look outside, I look into North Carolina, but my house is actually in South Carolina. Our backyard is the state line. If I keep my boat on Lake Wylie on the South Carolina side, I pay South Carolina sales tax, and I pay South Carolina property tax. If I were to buy a boat and keep it on the North Carolina side, I would have to pay North Carolina taxes for that first year. And then property tax, I can try to get away and hide it, but North Carolina is going to ultimately come after me for property tax, and South Carolina may try as well. And I've got to prove where I keep the boat with an actual contract for a marina. So these are all things that you want to think about so you don't have those unexpected fees. So if you have a lake house or a vacation property, you might want to figure out, hey, where's the best place to register it and to store it so that we can get the best tax advantage, or at least not be caught off guard. Next, we've got boat insurance. Everybody's got to have insurance on your boat. If you're storing your boat somewhere, they're going to require documentation of it. The states are going to require it. And if you have an incident, you want to have boat insurance. What people don't realize is that boat insurance is typically very inexpensive. Now, you can, Nick shared a great video on the ins and outs of boat insurance, how to kind of make sure you get the right coverage, how to shop for it. I'm going to show you what he gave me of kind of an estimate of what boat insurance is going to cost. So a bow rider deck boat, $300 to $500. Pontoon, Tri-Toon, $400 to $600. In the center consoles, $300 to $500 for a single engine. Twins, $800 to $1,800. Triples, $3,000 to $4,000. And you can kind of see as you look at the engines on the center console, as you get more engines, you're more likely to go offshore. You're more likely to go faster. You've got a higher sales price typically, and it's going to all incorporate in there. So those are just some samples that's going to give you a range of what you can expect that before you find your perfect boat to plug it into your budget. Now, a couple things to keep in mind. There are some pricing factors, which he talks about in that interview. If you want to get the full scoop on the insurance, you can also get a free quote from them in the products and service expo hall. So the biggest factor is going to be the boat itself, the price of the boat, the year, make, and model. One thing that can bump up your price or lower the price of the insurance is the total horsepower. If you've got a 25 horsepower outboard on your pontoon, that's going to be much less than if you have a 350 on the back. There's also a pretty significant jump in price if your boat runs over 65 miles an hour. That's where having the trips on a center console is going to come in. If you've got a go fast boat, when you hit that 65 mile an hour mark, you're going to take a significant jump in the premiums. The location, where and how it's stored. Is it stored in the water or is it stored on the trailer? Is it in a dry stack at a marina or is it in the water? Is it in a hurricane zone? All of those things are gonna make an impact. Coastal versus inland lakes and rivers. Well, inland lakes and rivers tend to be less risky, so you're going to pay a little bit smaller premium there. And then is it recreational, just a family pleasure boat, or is there a commercial aspect to it where you're making some money from it, running charters, things like that? Next, the actual owner. So not only does the boat impact it, but as the owner, there's an impact. The age, how old are you? Obviously, the older you are, tends to be a little bit less risky and a little bit cheaper insurance. The location and your actual address. So when I get my insurance on the boat, where I live is going to impact it. That I live in South Carolina at this address is going to be different than if I lived in New York or if I lived in Louisiana or if I lived in California. So those are going to impact the rates as well. The ownership experience. Are you a first-time boater or have you owned other boats before? make sure you talk to your insurance provider about your boating experience as well. Because even if you haven't boated before or owned a boat before, if you have significant experience, that can help bring the premium down. Prior claims, driving infractions, they actually look at your driving record and your criminal record. So if you have a criminal history, if you've got some driving infractions, especially DUIs, that's going to raise up your premiums. Some other things that are going to impact, if you go up in size over 10 foot. So if you go from a 26 footer to a 36 footer, you're fine. But if you go from a 26 footer to a 40 footer, they're going to say, whoa, that's a pretty significant jump. We're going to have a little bit higher premium because that's a different category of boat. If you're a first-time boater buying over 25 feet, so if you're thinking about it, hey, budget's really important to us. We want to get maybe a 27 footer. Well, think about that and say, well, maybe we can cut our costs down a little bit if we just go with the 25 footer. It's going to be pretty similar, or you're comparing one boat to another. Now, that one's not significant, but it does play a factor. So you want to talk to your insurance provider before you make that decision, and make sure that you're going to be able to get coverage and get it at a reasonable premium. If the boat is over 30 years old or older, that there's going to be a hit to that. You're going to pay a higher premium because an older boat means, hey, it's more likely that an older boat is going to have a catastrophic failure, is going to sink, is going to have something major happen. If you're in Florida, you're on the Gulf Coast, and you're over 32 feet, or you're doing charter coverage in Florida, again, those are all added risks, which is going to increase your factor. And then buying a boat that's over 100 miles from where you live. So if you're keeping it at your lake house that's 300 miles away, that's going to impact everything as well. So just some things to keep in mind. But these premiums are going to be a pretty good rough amount for you to take into account. Throw your aluminum fishing boats in with the bow riders and deck boats, and cruisers are going to fit in with that center console for the single. For the twins, it's going to fit that category as well. Okay, so now we've got the maintenance. Now I separate maintenance and repairs because their maintenance is pretty predictable. You're going to do your annual service, which is oil, gear lube, and impeller. Those are something that should be done, in my mind. Just go ahead and do it yearly. You can maybe get away with doing it every 2 years. Gear lube maybe every 3 years. But I'll get to this point here in the next slide. But the 100-hour service for the first 300 hours is pretty standard. Do your oil, gear lube, and your impeller, and you're all set. That's going to run you, let's say $300 to $400 a year, something like that, depending on where you are, depending on who does it. If you can do it yourself, you can do it very inexpensively. The actual materials is probably less than $100, and they're not super difficult to do. You just want to make sure that you do it exactly right, because doing it wrong can lead to a very expensive repair bill. When you get to the 500 to 1,000 hour, your 100-hour service is going to be a little bit more in depth, and you can go to the owner's manual, which if the boat doesn't have one that you're looking at buying, just go online. You can buy them online. You can typically just find the PDF online for free. And there's going to be a few more things in that 300 to 500, 500 to 1,000, and then over 1,000. There's going to be other things that you're going to want to address, and it starts ratcheting up a little bit at each of those levels. Every manufacturer is different. Volvo and MerCruiser are going to be slightly different. Outboards are going to be different, and that's per engine. So if you're looking at single, okay, figure $600 a year is going to cover your general maintenance, including winterization. If you have twins, budget $1,200. If you've got trips, budget what is that? $1,800. The winterization, if you're in a climate that freezes, you'll want to do a winterization. That can be as simple as, if you're in a mild climate, like I'm right on the border of North South Carolina, it will get down to 32 degrees a couple times a year. you're probably safe just pulling the plugs and draining the water out on a stern drive. And if you do it properly, you're not going to have any issues. That you can take out 6 plugs and you're ready to go. They might charge you 80, 100 bucks at a dealership to do that. If you want to put in the biodegradable antifreeze, have them fog the engine, have them treat the fuel, that's going to be $200, $250 to do that. And that's where you get the $600 total, the annual service and the winterization. That's going to cover you on most boats. If you've got the outboard, hey, you don't really need to worry too much about winterization. Tilt down that engine, let the water all drain out, tilt it back up and tilt it down, make sure it's all out of there, cover that prop so nothing gets in it, and treat the fuel, disconnect the battery. You're pretty much good to go. Might cost you 20 bucks in stable fuel stabilizer. Now, if you have a stern drive and you run it in salt water, so a MerCruiser or a Volvo, you're sucking in salt water into the engine to cool it, and every 5 to 7 years, somewhere in that range, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 years, you're going to need to redo your risers and your manifolds. They're going to rust out, and you're going to have to put a few $1,000s in to repair. So if you're buying a saltwater stern drive boat, hey, you need to know that's something that's going to come out eventually. You want to find out, has it been done? And if it hasn't, okay, how long's it been since they've been done? And then budget that in so you're not caught off guard. And that is a very necessary repair that can cause major issues if you don't take care of it. Now, here's a pro tip to save money, is do the recommended maintenance every year. Go get the manual, find it online, and do exactly what they say, because the better you do your maintenance, the less likely you're going to have a costly repair. A few $100s every year is going to be cheaper than a repair that's going to be, $3,000, $5,000 at a time. So that's very key in keeping the cost of ownership down. And if you're mechanically inclined and you want to do your own maintenance, that can be a huge savings. Just make sure you know what you're doing, you're using the right parts, and you're doing it properly so that you don't cause something else to happen. There's a ton of YouTube videos that you can watch, and we'll walk you through that. You can typically find one on the exact engine that you're working on, so you can even get some of the little pro tips to help you. And I'm looking to partner with a guy that may be able to do that for us and provide some of those valuable videos for you. So stay tuned for that. Storage. So you've got wet slips at a marina, dry stack at a marina, or high and dry, depending on where you're at. They'll call it different things. At your dock on a lift or no lift, on the trailer storage, or in your driveway. Based on where you want to go is going to based on the cost. Make a few phone calls before. One, find out if there's availability, if you want to go with a wet slip or a dry stack. If you have a dock, listen to the dock and lift video that we did with Henry Wilson. Sorry about that. I'm kind of losing my mind. And figure out what that's going to cost. If you're going to do it in storage, hey, maybe it's 50 bucks a month. Maybe you can find somebody that's got a barn or some land that you can put it on, and you can put it under an outbuilding, or just get a big tarp to keep it in good condition. Maybe you're like, when I was a kid, we just kept it in the driveway, no HOA, just kept it in the driveway, and it was free. You had easy access to it. But figure that into your budget and just make those phone calls. Find out about availability and find out about cost, so that you know when you get your boat, you know exactly what that's going to look like. Fuel. When you're looking at fuel, the boating style is going to impact the fuel that you use, the speed that you boat, and the engine and horsepower that you have. So if you are like me, my boating style is I love to anchor out, maybe go for some slow cruises. I don't typically go above, half throttle on any boat that I'm running. And the Pontoon's got a 150, which sips fuel. the way I run it. And, you know, if you're under 3/4 throttle, you can save yourself a lot of fuel. If you're just coving out, you're not using any fuel. So figure out the boating style and then figure out what the price of fuel is in your area. So waterwayguide.com/fuel-price-report will give you actual real-time fuel prices. So you can go and say, okay, to get non-ethanol marine grade fuel on the water, which is going to be the most expensive fuel you can get, is $3.52 a gallon. And then just kind of figure out, okay, we're gonna spend about this much and figure out that fuel, plug it in for the months that you're going to boat. And now, you know, in May, June, July, August, September, we need to budget $300 a month for fuel, and put that in so you know exactly what the costs are as you're looking for it. Now, repairs. This is the biggest unknown. Pretty much everything up till now, you can have a really, really accurate amount in your little budget. And if you upgrade to the VIP, we've got a little calculator tool that you get that will plug all this in, as well as figure the depreciation of the boat, so you can figure the total cost of ownership and get a really accurate view of that. But repairs, well, a couple things to know. The shop rate, about $100 to $180 per hour for a good marine technician. Now, if you are, it's going to be based on the boating location and who you're using. So one of the highest rates I've ever seen on just a family pleasure boat is in the Seattle area, around $180 an hour at kind of the top tier service shops there. Most places you can find a shop rate around 100 to 120 an hour to do the work. So that's going to tell you, hey, to have somebody work on my boat is not super cheap, but the better they are, typically the less likely it's got to go into the shop again. They'll get it right the first time, and they're going to use the right parts and install them the right way. I encourage you to use the marine grade parts when necessary. So if you're in saltwater, the marine grade parts have some corrosion resistance and rust resistant. They're usually painted with something a little bit different if there's paint on it. If it's electrical, use the marine grade parts. The reason why is it's a harsh environment. If it's just a little electrical connector, you want to make sure it's heat shrink wrapped, and so that no rust and corrosion happens. If it's in the engine compartment of a stern drive, you definitely want to make sure it's marine grade, because if it's not, there might be an open spark, which, if there's fumes in that compartment, could cause an explosion. And that's often the cause of a catastrophic accident. Is one, the maintenance wasn't kept up the way it should have been, and that includes just kind of inspecting everything when you put it away for the season, when you do your annual service. But two, something sparked because there was a non-marine starter in the boat, or a non-marine component that didn't have the spark totally enclosed to avoid that situation. So there are differences at times. And again, ask a marine mechanic, ask somebody that is knowledgeable based on the engine that you have and what you're looking to repair. But typically lean towards the maybe a little bit more expensive marine part, but you're going to have better usage out. And then an overarching thing in boating is, the more you use your boat, typically the fewer repairs you're going to have, because boats like to be used. The lubrication gets moved through the motor, the impeller's twirling and getting used. It's not getting brittle and hard just sitting out of the water. The gear lube's running through all those gears and keeping them lubricated and avoiding getting corrosion and rusty. Everything's getting exercised. The bilge pumps, the blower pump, or the blower fan, all of those things are being exercised. And the more you use it properly, typically the fewer repairs you're going to have. That's why the charter boats and some of the ferry boats, I mean, these guys are using their boats, putting 1,000, 2, 3, 4, 5,000 hours on these boats. They're doing their regular maintenance, and they very seldom break down because they're doing the maintenance when it says to do it, they're doing everything on that list, and they're using it consistently. So those parts don't have time to sit, have all the oil and gear lube and lubrication kind of drain off them and get kind of stuck, get corroded, start to rust, start to seize. So the more you can use your boat, the cheaper it's going to be to in repairs anyway. You may use a little bit more fuel, but those are some thoughts on the repair. And then finally, you've got your gear. So you definitely have to have the life vests for everybody on board, dock lines, fenders, an anchor. You're probably going to want a cooler if it doesn't have one built into it. The flares necessary if you're on the coast, fishing equipment, water sports gear, electronic stereo upgrade, trailer tires. If you've got a trailer, every 5 years or so, you should probably be changing those trailer tires out so you don't have a bad event happen. Cleaning supplies, water toys. Couple ideas if you're budget conscious. Play it against sports if they have one in your area. Oftentimes we'll have some great water sports toys. Matter of fact, I grabbed a really nice wakeboard for my girls for $50. They were thinking about trying to wakeboard. I wasn't sure if they were going to like it, so I didn't want to get a $500 wakeboard. So I went there to check it out. Sure enough, they had a $50 one. Talked them down a little bit, and now my daughters have a wakeboard that they can practice on, see if they like it. And if they do, great. Now we can invest in a little bit more. If they don't, fine. It's $50. We'll keep it in the garage or take it back or give it to somebody else. They've got life jackets. They've got all sorts of stuff there. Craigslist is another place. If you're in a boating area, for sure, even if you're not, Craigslist is going to have some gear. Join Facebook groups. People are selling boats. Go to a dealership in your area or a broker in your area and say, hey, listen, we're buying a new boat. I was wondering if you had any used gear. We were out one day and the tube that we had failed. And so I stopped at the marina that I used to work at and I said, hey, Rusty, you got anything that you can give me? And he gave me a big airhead tube, which is about a $300 tube that somebody had sold their boat and said, here, give this to somebody that needs it. And Rusty said, here you go. So if you're kind, maybe a 12-pack of beer and some pizzas, make a connection and you can get some really nice gear inexpensively from people that are getting out of boating. So Facebook groups, Craigslist, Play It Against Sports are some great places to look and find those things. So that is the gear part of it. Now, we've got this tool that we've created, the cost of ownership calculator. In the VIP section, you can download that and you can get it. You can plug everything in, including the boat loan information, and you can get a full cost of ownership. And we've even got it built out so that you can put in the cost of the boat, what you think the depreciation would be, and it'll spit out a total cost of ownership amount. So for just the couple bucks that we're asking for the VIP upgrade, you can grab this tool. You can there's other stuff that comes along with it. Check out that video. But this is going to give you what you need to figure that full cost of ownership. And it's going to help you to make sure does boating fit into our lifestyle? Because if it doesn't, you're going to hate it. And the boat's going to have a repair that you can't afford at that time. It's going to sit, it's going to get worse. And you're going to say, boating stands for break out another 1,000. You're going to hate it. And you're going to get out of boating with a bad taste in your mouth. If that's the case, I'd rather have you save your money, maybe save up a little bit more so you can pay cash, wait another year or two until the finances make sense, and then get into boating when you're really going to enjoy it and you're going to be able to cover all of the expenses. And if something unexpected comes up, because there will be something unexpected in repairs, I want to make sure that you're not caught off guard. So this is the first step in, does boating make sense for us? Figure out that budget, grab that VIP upgrade if you want the calculator, and we'll catch you in the next video.